Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for update 61 of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start, as always, with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, we've got a bit of a smaller update this week, mostly quality of life stuff, but that doesn't mean we can't also have a few new toys. So let's jump right into them. So the first thing we've got is a pair of new sort of pistol caliber Civvie carbines that are the APC-9 and the APC-45. They've got pretty much the same frame, but different caliber for you to try out. Semi-auto only. Got a bolt handle up here. We've got a retractable stock, and of course, let's throw on a sight here. This is our SRS-2. Before we do that, we've got little peep sights here. We can rock up, pull that up. Nope. Let's pull that stock out a little more. There we go. Nice and controllable. Throw a sight on there. Flip those down. Wonderful. It's one of those things that, especially for rot wieners, I've been trying to fill out the sort of category of quote-unquote civvy guns, stuff that you would find outside of, a military context. And so, yeah, have been using that opportunity here. Oh, I forgot to mention, this is the carbine version of these, by the way. You'll notice it's a little longer than the sort of compact SMG version of this platform. Up there, this APC-45 kicks a little more. Honestly, they look really cool, even one-handing them. Especially both at once. Wonderful. Pop those there. And then we've got, for those of you, I always get bugged all the time about I wish there was more types of AR-15s to choose from, and y'all have annoyed me enough about it that I decided to give you something that to some of you will be beautiful and to others of you will just be hideous. I think it's beautiful because it's hideous. That's right. We've got ourselves another Civvie AR-15 with our skeletonized 4. We've got some bronze detailing on it. This sucker is just disgusting, and I love it. So here you go. Oh, helps to have something up on those irons. So let's this is known as the Bubba 15 in game, and it wouldn't be a Bubba gun without needlessly putting a really oversized hollow on it, of course. Wonderful. Semi-auto only, as I said. Retractable stock. If we want to pull that out a bit more, put our hand way forward to show we know our proper tactical pose. Get down a little lower. Aren't we cool with our expensive rifle? Yes. So there you have it. That is our new toys. Now let's jump over real quick to the proving ground to take a look at an improvement I have made to some of our melee systems, and talk about a new exciting locomotion option that is now present for those of you in front-facing configurations. So, we are over in the proving ground. Let's talk about the new locomotion option first. This is going to be especially relevant to those of you, say, running a Rift in a front-facing configuration. That extra button that you folks have on your controllers that I don't have on my Vive wands, the A and X button, have now been bound to snap turning. And to give you even more control over this, in the options panel, if we pull open our movement mode options, there is right here at the top, I need to fix that label, it should say global movement options, a snap turn angle increment option. This affects everyone, actually, in that regardless of what kind of snap turn you're using, say in 2-axis movement mode, or with this, we can now change it between 90, 45, 22.5, 15, and 5 degrees if that's your jam. So I have temporarily bound this to my grip buttons to make this a little easier to demonstrate, but I can now click them on the right, boom, I go 45, 45 that way, boop, 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 etc. I can change that down to, say, 15 for smaller increments, if I want. And that is now just enabled for you. I tend to keep it at 45 when I am using that. So this is especially useful if you're in 2-axis mode, and say in our touchpad joystick style, we have this to lateral is strafe, which is the default. It allows us to strafe left and right, move forward and back as we normally do, but also snap turn while doing so. So hopefully those of you who are in a sort of more restrictive track space or just don't want to deal with like USB extenders or what have you to throw your rift tracking setup into a room scale configuration will feel more mobile and agile in our in more intense modes like rot wieners. My apologies for taking so freaking long for getting this set up for you. So now, let's move on. We've got some big changes to our two-handed melee weapons. That's why I have them laying out, because I just finished making them all work. So basically, the issue with two-handed objects thus far, and I'll just use the flamethrower here as an example, is that as you, let's show our controllers so it's more obvious what has changed here. Oh, that's going to be fun, snap turning every time I drop something. Is that as you've held a two-handed melee weapon and sort of come in for a strike on something, you have extended the forward hand, and it just hasn't felt good. Like you've gone to jab, and the weapon tends to tip down, etc. What I've done is effectively invert the relationship between the sort of primary and the secondary grip. So in the case of, say, a sword here, our primary grip is now up closer to the cross guard, which immediately feels better for one-handed use. And then we grab the alternate grip. You can see now that the weapon stays with the forward hand, even though the secondary grip still allows us to pivot it. So it makes it significantly easier, especially if you're holding it back and trying to parry or disarm, knock away weapons that like a Rotwiener has, or even just come very, very quickly from a stabbing to a slashing motion. And the weapon actually comes, as I said, forward with your forward-most hand. So yeah, so let's give this a try. Put that in the shoulder, and let's also grab. Let's do it. Let's grab a stabbing one. Oh man, this custom binding is fun. And something like this. So if we spawn ourselves some Sosigs, grab. Remember, so your alternate point is going to be down here. So kind of come over here. Much easier to do a strong overhand on something. Much easier to just hold on to it. Blap. Same thing with stabbing with something. It's much easier to keep a sharp motion where it doesn't dip down or up as you do it. So we can come up and go like so. Much easier. And then, lastly, and most importantly, it's much easier to do those great decapitating strikes. And remember, with a two-handed melee weapon, if you're using it two-handed, you get a pretty sick damage bonus. Whap! Perfect. Practicing my Maul ninja skills here. Let's get one low. Oh, it's always harder to get the lower links. There we go.
Rip my heart out, why don't
Perfect. Remember, following through with your strikes and making sure to move them really, really fast in a controlled way is gonna get the best effect.
Oh, darn it.
Whap. Perfect. Well, aside from snap turning all the time when I don't want to. All right, so that is our update with the way that melee stuff works. Now, let's actually quickly jump over to the Rotwiener scene and check out the last quality of life improvement that is coming in this update. So, we are over in the Rotwiener scene now, and I know a number of folk have complained about how, especially once you've already played the mode a couple times, you know what you're going to grab to go do a run around town, that there's a whole bunch of sort of tedious travel that happens inside the hamlet. And I understand that, especially for those of you who are doing really trial and error stuff where you're likely to die pretty fast. And so, I have added, with the help of Stefan Modeling and Lucas making us a beautiful map of the hamlet, there is now the in-hamlet translocation system. So we can select one of our 7 endpoints. So say we wanted to run over and get something from, I don't know, our ranger cabin. We could just hit 5 here. It's now selected. Walk over. Boom! And translocate right over to Bobbert's place. How's it going, Bobbert? And of course, once we're done with that, and we're like, oh goodness, I need to go get some. I need to get some farm weapons from Sarah Wiener. Hit number 2 there. Blap, and translocate our butts right on over here. Admire the gorgeous crop coming in this year. So there you have it. So that should hopefully resolve that annoyance for a number of you. There's a whole bunch of other little tweaks and bug fixes and balance adjustments in what currently exists for Rotwieners, but I'll talk about that outside of VR. So let's go ahead and do that now.
Yo! So as I mentioned, we've got a bunch of other little bug fixes and balance changes that affect both Rotwieners and a couple other sort of areas of the game. One big change is that I have altered the way that ballistic system damage is computed when striking targets that take damage that are softer than bullets. So this primarily affects everything made of meat, like the SO6. What was basically occurring that I noticed a bit with the SO6, but really noticed it in Rotwieners, is that high-powered cartridges with a high capability to penetrate were over-penetrating so much that they weren't actually doing a terrible amount of damage when they really should have been. Essentially, there should be especially for something moving at supersonic speeds, there should be this sort of shock wave that occurs through the medium that the round is penetrating. And so I've attempted to coarsely simulate this for rounds that basically penetrate and have leftover kinetic energy. I've got a sort of shifting gradient based on sort of like angle of hit and some other material parameters. And what this base that translates to significantly more bleeding damage. So this should, I hope, help without making everything too powerful. But I think I found a much better balance for it. So please play around in the proving ground a whole bunch. Tell me what you think. Let's see here. Cartridges can now be cooked off by igniter particle systems, i.e. like Molotovs or the flamethrower. I tried to add a new sort of object catcher system in Rotwieners, so that if something falls through the ground, like an important thing like a mag, just wait a quick sec, it should theoretically hit that object catcher and then be respawned again about like 0.5 meters above the ground where it fell through. Hopefully this doesn't end up resulting in things like looping endlessly. I hope. Let's see here. Enemies in Rotwieners will no longer spawn with ammunition for weapons that they don't have. So in this case, say, you know, a bunch of Rotwieners swarm an NPC who has an AKM. It has like 10 rounds in it left. When that NPC goes down, the Rotwiener can still pick it up, but 2 things are going to be different about that. 1, it won't be able to reload it, so it's only going to have those 10 rounds in it. And 2, as the Rotwieners aren't really good with things, the Rotwieners are going to do what's called panic fire with it, which is a new sort of module that I wrote for the SO6 that even the regular ones, if they take like a really hard blow to the head, or if they're blinded and they took damage recently, they can panic fire now. Where basically they don't regard how far angularly they are from their target or the range. They just it's like they clench and lay on the trigger. So let's see if that's interesting or not. I have no idea. Cool. Yeah, I tweaked Rotwiener life and damage resist values a bit. The spitter should be a little less tanky. Overall, what a bunch of these changes are designed to do, when all put together, is to basically make firearms more viable in an interesting way in Rot Wieners while still having melee have its correct place in that system. So it's something that I'm just working slowly towards in the balance, getting feedback back, seeing X or Y comparisons. I thank you for your patience in that. Sarah Wiener no longer gives you a two-handed farm tool as a reward right as the first quest because of how powerful those are. She'll only give you one-handed ones. And the deputy station carbine spawn table now has a few more things in it. A bunch of different fixes related to like translocators, save states, armored Rot Wieners not despawning, Rot Wiener hives not taking explosive damage. I fixed that. Meat cores counting from multiples when like slammed into the Resemblerotron. The holy water fountain has a sound. Destroyable loot containers can now be bashed open with objects. You don't have to shoot them or have a melee weapon with you. Yeah, and a bunch of other little assorted things. The last thing, and I didn't necessarily list this in the additions changelog for this, because I don't want everyone to think that suddenly the guns that use these are just in the game. But this past week, I went ahead and implemented a ton of extra cartridge types into the game, like 12 more, because they're tedious to do. And oftentimes, like, I'll be sitting there being like, oh, I want to implement X firearm, and they'll be like, oh, it uses a cartridge that I haven't put in the game yet, and I have to spend 2 to 3 hours adding that cartridge first. That's not fun. So I don't implement the firearm. So I just went ahead and got a whole bunch of just like nitty gritty, okay, I guess I'll just go ahead and put these cartridges in, even though nothing in the game uses them yet, to make it easier for me in the future, especially because we have the Meat Miss season coming up, which I'll be talking about more soon. Anywho, that's enough of me blabbing. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend playing around with far better two-handed melee. Those of you running on touch or WMR, you know, having an extra button to be able to snap turn, let me know how that works out for you. And I'll just be here working away. Peace.